All right, so this week we want to focus all on reflection because as parents, if we are reflective, we can have such a bigger impact on our kids, in our families, in our communities, basically in our lives. But we have to take that time to stop and think about it. And so that's going to be our focus for this week is us just slowing down. We're really reflecting and thinking on the last 2 weeks and all the different strategies that we've used to connect with our kids, what worked, what didn't work, what do we want to change for the future, and having those discussions with our kids, right, to make those changes and just having that moment of reflection. But it's kind of simple to say. What I want to talk about for just a little bit is why it's so incredibly important. And in fact, I believe that we can call reflection essentially the missing piece of effective parenting, because parenting is one of those things that many of us are proactive about and we think about, but we probably don't spend as much purposeful time doing it. We think about it in the car on the way to school. We think about it while we are, trying to get the kids to stop arguing, but we don't really sit down and are purposeful about it. So that's going to be our goal this week, is to sit down and purposefully think about how we are connecting with our kids. So if you think about modern society, we're incredibly busy, right? In fact, I think the statistics show that the vast majority of Americans suffer from moderate to high levels of stress at a constant basis. And the average mom only has 7 minutes a day to herself, which I'm not surprised at all about that one. Usually those are those minutes that you steal to go to the bathroom, or they're the few minutes that you have before you, between putting the kids to bed and then passing out in bed because you're so exhausted. So they're not really quality minutes, right? They're the ones that you kind of sneak in there. But other research has shown that 56% of working moms and 50% of working dads say that they find it very or somewhat difficult to balance work and life. And I would even argue that those are relatively low statistics. We live in a very, very busy time in a very busy society that doesn't always put value on slowing down. And so what we want to do this week is we want to slow down and we want to think about who we are as a parent, who our kids are, and really reflect on that. So maybe you guys may know of the theory of experiential learning. It's by David Kolb. It's this idea that not just children, but adults, everybody, we all need these hands-on real life experiences, but we need to reflect on them. And without reflection, really the experience doesn't have the effect that we want it to have. And there is a researcher at Harvard who studied this, and they found that when people took the time to reflect, it built on their confidence and in their ability to achieve a goal. And I think we would all agree with this, right? It's just usually we do not take that time to set aside to reflect. And we especially don't do it with parenting. We might do it with our jobs. We might do it with other things, but it's something that we're not typically, it's not really on our radar for parenting. So we want to change that. And when parents reflect, it helps them reinforce desired behaviors that we want from our kids, right? Or that we want to help them develop. It helps us to clear unwanted behaviors because, again, we're being purposeful about what we're doing. And then it helps us to bring in even more compassion. So this is called reflective parenting. It's also called another word, which I'm going to try and say it without laughing. It's called mentalization. And so whoever came up with that, they missed an opportunity. They had a great opportunity to call it something wonderful, but they called it mentalization. And so it refers to the ability to reflect upon and to understand one's state of mind, to have insight into what one is feeling and why. So essentially, it's reflection, right? Here's another definition that I found that I thought was really interesting and kind of insightful. So it's a skill of being able to see yourself from the outside and see your children from the inside, right? So we're seeing ourselves based on how we react to our kids, which isn't always pretty. And then we try to see our kids from the inside, so how they are feeling based on how we react. And so it's this really, we'll call it reflective parenting because mentalization is an awful word. But it's a brilliant idea for compassionate, proactive parents, right? To help us to continue to develop these relationships with our kids, become more connected, and develop better relationships. So even an Australian parenting program called Bringing Up Great Kids found that after reflecting, parents reported being more mindful, feeling calmer, listening and responding more positively to their children. And they also reported having a better understanding of how their upbringing influenced their parenting and how the responses and behaviors affected their children. So it really helped them to stop and think not only how they were parenting, but creating better, calmer, more loving situations. So here's the thing. Anytime we reflect, a lot of times we think we can just sit down and think about something. And the reality is we can, but it's usually not very effective. We need to have more targeted questions. We need to be a little bit more purposeful. And so that's why using a journal is great. Maybe sitting down with a friend, with a sister, with a partner, and talking it through with someone else. It kind of depends on how you process. You may want to do both depending on the situation, right? But try to take 15 minutes this week. 15 minutes is nothing, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's a very, very small chunk of time. Take 15 minutes this week and purposefully reflect on not only your parenting, but let's focus on the connection piece, right? We are working on developing stronger connections with our kids. And we're doing that through one-on-one time. We're doing that through daily nature time. We're doing that in a way where we really hear our kids' voices, where they feel heard and seen and valued. And let's reflect on how we did on that this week and what we can do to get even better. So I am going to give you guys a form that you can fill out with some of these questions, but I just want to mention some of these because you may want to try them. So my favorite moment of bonding between my kids and I this week was one loving or present moment with my partner this week was one way I stayed in touch with friends this week was a way I worked some rest or downtime into my schedule this week was one thing I did especially well as a parent this week was I like that one, right? Because there's so many moments that we can call out about ourselves that we probably wouldn't want other people to see, right? This one really focuses on what is good. And we know that if we focus on what is good, then more good happens. We know that if we focus on what is bad, then more bad happens, right? It's kind of this thing that happens in our brain. And so take some of these questions this week. I'm going to give you guys some and just go through this process. Take 15 minutes and reflect on what has worked, not just this past week, but the past 3 weeks. What has worked with connecting with your kids? What could you do better? What kind of changes do you want to make? What was your best parenting moment since you started these one-on-one connection strategies? All right, if you guys have any questions, let me know.